Welcome to the Real Recovery Show. We air every Friday at noon, and we're super excited about all the feedback that we've been getting. It's amazing how this community has been growing and growing and growing, and I get to have these amazing conversations with people who are super focused on helping people, raising awareness, and breaking the stigma of addiction. And so today, we have a special episode. We're joined here with two sisters who started with, how many other women did you start it with?
Two others.
Two other women, an annual race called the Second Chance 5K. And it started off with just an idea to walk, to get together, in remembrance of some personal losses that they've had that they're going to talk about today. And now it's grown into such a big thing in just 7 years that it's amazing to watch and curious to see where it goes. And so I'm wearing the shirt, as you can see, and then they have all these sponsors on the back of it. And they do this every year. And this year it's going to be at Gibbons Elementary School in Summerlin. But we'll have all the information about that at the end of this episode. So as we normally do, we start off with a little background about our personal lives, about how we grew up, about what led to this moment, and the passion that's behind helping people and raising this awareness about addiction, overdosing, and what people who lose people can do as well to go through the grieving process and come together and break the silence for that as well and get new tools. And so we'll start off. Oh, I have to introduce them, don't I? Okay, so we're joined here with Amy Schlauter, okay, and Jenny Slade.
Hello.
Yes, did I do it right? Okay. I'm always afraid I'm going to mess up people's names. All right. And so I guess we'll start off with you. You can share a little bit about your childhood. And you actually could both your same childhood, right?
Yeah.
You can share and just tell us like what happened that led up to the overdoses and what that was like.
Yeah. My name's Amy, born and raised in Las Vegas. So I am fourth of 5 girls. So Amber is our oldest sister, then Jenny, who's here with us, then Leah, then me, then our youngest sister, Allison. We grew up in the southwest side of Las Vegas. Both of our parents were actually born here. I think our grandparents have been here since
like 1950s.
Yeah,
wow.
40s. Yeah. So we've been here a long time. We're super in love with the city. We absolutely love Las Vegas. We love raising our kids here. I have 2 young kids. I have a 6-year-old son and an almost 2-year-old little girl.
Okay.
Yeah, just in terms of some more adult background, I taught high school social studies for about 10 years. I taught psychology mostly. I was a volleyball coach. That's kind of my background. But yeah, I'd say you can talk a little bit more about
There's a reason we have them both on the episode.
Yeah, exactly.
Amy's has a bad memory, so we're just going to put it that way. A lot of it has been wiped away.
Did that happen?
Yeah.
All right, well, you can continue it.
Okay, great. So, yeah, we born and raised Vegas. We actually both went to Durango High School. We have a fondness for that. Our other sisters went to different high schools. Leah went to Durango for a little while, too. And I was the second oldest. So Amber, my older sister, is just about 1.5 years older. She was just 1 grade above me. So we were really tight as far as we did everything together. And then my other sister who passed away, Leah, she's was about 2 years younger than me. So I was just in the middle of Amber and Leah. So those were the 2 sisters I really grew up with the most. We cheered together, danced together, really had a pretty idyllic childhood. Incredible parents, grandparents, lots of family, lots of support, lots of wonderful neighbors. And so our childhood as we were younger, it was really beautiful. I can look at so many great things all the way up until really when Amber hit about 14 or 15 is when things changed more for her.
And what happened with her?
So when she was it was either 14 or 15. Now, Amber was like, if there's someone who's the life of the party, she was. She was probably the most charming, beautiful, outgoing, everyone loved her. It was easy for anyone to love her. When she spoke to anyone, they loved her immediately because she really loved them. So it was everyone wanted to be Amber or be around Amber. And but when she was around 14 or 15, she had a boyfriend or someone who said, hey, if you really want to get skinnier, you should try crystal meth. And she tried it at that time, which to me is really odd, thinking, wait, but our parents always told us don't do drugs. Like, how did you do that when you knew you weren't supposed to?
Right.
Like, blew my mind. I was kind of the one that was not a risk taker and just followed in her footsteps, a little more quiet, did everything I was told, where she really wanted to experience life and was like, well, I'll try it if that's, can't hurt. And it seems like from then it kind of kept going through whether she was curious. I mean, this is all stuff we're trying to figure out now of why did she keep going down that path.
Yeah.
And then through high school, she still cheered, got great grades, but just continued to try more and more.
Did your parents know that she was doing crystal meth, or?
Later, yeah. Amber was in trouble a lot. So
Okay.
I was the one who was not in trouble, and I made sure that I was
You were the
never
good
going to be
girl.
in trouble. No, yeah, I really did not want to hurt my parents the way she was. So she hurt them a lot. And I could see it, so I made sure I was trying to be the perfect one while she was being the naughty one. I mean, and some of it was just breaking curfew, but she was always pushing the limits. And so it seemed like she was constantly grounded. Maybe all of it wasn't bad. I didn't necessarily know it was drugs. My dad, I don't know if I've ever heard him yell. He's just very kind, soft-spoken. And one time that he found this is going to show you how much I don't know drugs because I was so focused on not doing what she was doing. Right. But it was like a bong in the back of her car. And I remember he walked out of it very calmly, and I had no idea what he was holding. I thought it was like a beautiful vase of some sort.
They are actually beautiful.
Beautiful.
There's a lot of care that goes into making those.
Right? It is. Yeah. And I didn't, and I was young, and he, I remember him saying something to Amber like, now this is really disappointing. We don't do drugs in our house. It was very calm, but, she was grounded again, but then she'd sneak out. And I think she enjoyed the validation she got from partying and boys and being that life of the party. And she continued that for, I don't know that it ever stopped. So it turned into alcohol. And then she was in a car accident, and then it turned into pills from there. And there was a time when she was clean it was a good stint of time. And that was like a really beautiful time for us. And Amy can talk more about that because she went and visited her. But we could always, her personality was still always coming through. And so whenever it seemed mean, it was clear that was not her, you know. But yeah, that was kind of Amber's route. She got married. She was clean for a while when she was pregnant, 100% clean, and had a beautiful boy, Caden, but then slowly kind of just reverted back, possibly when things get hard, and then eventually it led to her overdose in 2013.
Do you think that because she was so social and so out there, do you think that her need to be part of, her need to be seen, that because you're painting this picture of her being this hostess, like this, like the debutante, like the way she was,
Yes.
and how her energy was. And so some people, they feed in that, and some people, they drain in that, right?
Right.
And so the person that wants attention and wants to be that they very much care about what they look like. They very much care about that, more so necessarily. And it doesn't seem to be a bad thing until it is.
Right.
Like even the motivation maybe for doing the drug to lose weight, regardless of whether or not this was against the religion of our upbringing, whether or not it was something we were told not to do, whether or not we even saw somebody else have an issue with it, the mind goes, no, I feel like this is something I want to do because this supports what I feel I need, which is that to strengthen that experience that we're having that we need,
Right.
Like in the same way, if somebody's needing to not be seen, to just disappear, they will do drugs for the opposite reason, to feed that the idea, like I need to just blend in, I need to just not feel so different, I need to somehow be able to communicate but not necessarily like be able to isolate, be able to change the way I feel. And so a lot of times when people do drugs, they do it because it agrees with something in their mind that they are valuing, whatever it is. And to other people, they don't see anything different because that person doesn't think it's a problem at the time. Mm-hmm. Why would they? Were you guys, before she got into that, were anybody in your family exposed to anybody that had addiction?
I don't think so.
I didn't know of anyone. I really didn't. I mean,
so where was her ominous warning going to come from?
True.
Right?
Yeah. It was kind of just like, don't do it.
Yeah.
Follow the rules. Yeah.
Yeah, but why? You know, it's like, but why?
There was no why.
That's usually that's usually the budding first thoughts of an addiction is like, but I don't understand why. Why can't I do this thing?
Right.
You know? Yeah. So that's interesting. And so she was the oldest?
She's the oldest. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so there's quite a big gap between me and Leah. So Leah was between Jenny and I. So she's 5 years older than me. But just kind of seeing from the outside, I mean, we would describe Leah, like you said, those kind of two personalities. She was different, right? Like she was the one that maybe
wants to pull back.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, she was the middle child. So I think figuring out her way, figuring out her place between the oldest two, and then me and my younger sister were the youngest two. And so her addiction did not start as young as Amber. For Amber, in my memory, it was most of what I remember of Amber, and then brief stints of her being sober. For Leah, I would say, I mean, I think the hardest thing, and when we talk about this and how we've gotten into it, is the biggest regret we have is we didn't ask these questions. Like there was maybe assumptions, there was maybe we could have thought when things might have changed for her. But we weren't really open to or didn't know.
How could you do that, though?
Yeah.
How could you have a conversation you don't know you need to have?
Right.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, it's so easy to be now so much more aware, partly through everything that you've done to educate yourself and then to put the message out there to educate other people. But it's so easy to take current you and look back at former you and go, wow, I really should have da-da-da-da. And how would you have known to do that? If you knew to do it, you would have done it.
Exactly.
And you didn't. And that's one of the biggest reasons for these shows, for these events, for these programs, is because there is so much ignorance still about it, because there's so much stigma, there's so much don't talk about it, even within the family, right? Yeah. That people don't know there is a thing you could say. There's no conversation that says, yes, this is okay. It's so taboo to even talk about it, to even ask, and honestly, even if you did have it, you may not have been, it may not have been the most welcome subject, because when somebody starts to get addicted, I don't know if you've ever seen The Lord of the Rings with Smeagol, with the Precious.
Yeah.
It becomes the most valuable thing. The hit, the experience, it becomes something they have that's separate, that's different. And the addict will justify it, explain it, tell you why it's not a problem, because they have to keep believing it's not a problem, and they'll defend it. It's so a lot of times, we have these regrets and everything, and we think, oh, if I only could have done something to save or do anything, but it doesn't really work like that. There's so much misinformation and ignorance around it that even people who are around people who are addicted and clearly say to themselves, like you said about your sister, like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to get in trouble like that. I'm going to be the good girl over here. There's not enough understanding to be able to do it. And so I could see why going through this whole process of having this 5K and having these conversations with people, and you yourself have gotten so educated to know now so much more. But wouldn't it be nice if people who are currently having family members using drugs or alcohol or behaving differently could start to recognize some of the signs and hopefully start a conversation. But I will say this last thing. The family is usually the last place that this conversation is going to take place, because usually there's some sort of element of don't talk, don't trust, don't feel happening in the family environment. And there's such a maintenance of the appearance of things and not in the real experience of it that that people are just doing what they feel like they're supposed to be doing, which is focusing on looking like we got it all together. So that conversation needs to happen because there's a bottoming that happens that shows us the value of having the conversation. And unfortunately, and this is unfortunate, it means that if you're the addict needing to start that conversation, you have to go through something that's intolerable to you in your addiction. Or, I just got the chills, if you are the codependent, if you are the person who is affected by the addict's behavior, you might have to lose them. And for you to bottom, to start having the conversations, to start looking within, to be able to know it, you know?
Yeah.
Because the addict is not the only one who's sick, right? If we're not feeling our feelings and talking about this stuff. And so, unfortunately, you know, that this had to happen, but at the same time, what remarkable stuff you guys are involved in now to take this and say, okay, well, this happened partly because there were not conversations and there was not awareness, and now there needs to be.
Right. Yeah,
So,
exactly.
beautiful. And so, so what happened with Leah?
Yeah, so she actually died first. So she died in 2011. I would say it was probably the last 10 years of her life.
Actually, I mean, it could have been she had two children, and she really had this beautiful life, husband and the kids, and he was a police officer, she was a hairdresser. She had this really beautiful life, and I know, like, she did have some back pain that was pretty bad, so she had had a prescription for pills. It could have even just been the last 3 years. It's sad that we didn't really know.
Yeah.
But we just kind of saw her life starting to fall apart a little, and that her marriage broke up, and she wasn't around her kids, and she was hanging around weird people, and we're like, how did this happen?
Right.
Also, her son, Caleb, he was diagnosed with neurofibromatosis, and I think that she was such an empathetic person and so kind, and always wanted to be a mom, and that was her, you know, her favorite job in the world was being this mom, and she was incredible at it and so loving. And when that diagnosis really rocked her, and so I think when those pills were maybe just actually used for pain, it became something else to really numb something that was so emotionally painful.
There's an interesting thing about pain pills. I don't know if you know this. I myself didn't learn this until about maybe 12, 13 years ago myself. Somebody mentioned it to me in a recovery event, and I was like, really? Is that a thing? And then I looked it up, and it's a thing. So without further ado, I'll tell you the thing. Is that in the body, when you take pain pills that you actually have pain for, that it actually goes to those receptors, and it blocks the pain in those receptors. When you get to a point where you're no longer experiencing that level of overstimulation at the nerve receptor, now it starts to go other places and numb out other things. And so and I've experienced this myself because unfortunately, pain pills is one of my addictions. And so there's a point where you start to click on it and you start to go, you know, there's these added benefits from this. I'm having peace. I'm doing maybe meditating better. I'm, you know, feeling like I love people more and whatever like that. And so it's not like, it's not a sharp contrast, right? I'm taking it for pain and now I'm taking it for this. It just goes so smoothly that if a person doesn't have the education to be aware of it, of the doctor's not educating the patient about what could happen or anything, which we definitely need more of that, is education at the level of actual prescriptions, but I digress, that nobody may know what's happening until their attitude changes. They start to like have, you know, they're not tuned in and present now. They're missing things. They're getting cranky. You know, yeah. And so again, it's not something that you could have necessarily known, because I'm sure in your field of vision, you were like, you know what, something's going on with her. She's trying to find herself. I'm sure you had a lot of stuff going on in your own lives, and so it's not so so perfect to be able to say, oh, I know what's happening and I need to like have the cape and go fix this. You don't know.
Right.
You don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I only know this stuff because I went through it. I didn't know.
Right.
Right. So.
Yeah.
So, okay, so very interesting. And then, and also, I don't know if you know this too, but with a family, they call this, so everybody has these roles. They have the hero child, they have the lost child. Have you ever seen anything having to do with any of this stuff? It's really interesting. So, like, as I'm listening to you, I'm like going, so you'd be the hero child, and Leah would be the invisible lost child, and then, you know, and Amber would be the entertainer, and then also the black sheep, the one that's going and doing all the things that, you know, that she finds that she's not going to do because she's going to play that card, you know. But everybody picks a role, and people don't normally have the same role. And you even said that. Like, you did it partly as I'm not going to do that. So it's very fascinating. Yeah.
No, definitely.
So when it happened that Leah died, Amber knew none that this happened. How did Amber take that? Did she notice? Did it matter? Like, did she look at her own addiction? Was it anything?
Really, really devastating for Amber. Yeah, beyond devastating, especially because she felt like she brought Leah into it. Helped her get the pills. They started having the same friends.
Wow.
Some of those things towards the end really, you know, they were together a lot, and Amber was kind of like, oh, this is how we can do this. And so, yeah, I know she took on a lot of that blame. There's a photo of Amber looking at her grave and at the casket, and it's just like, it's almost like she kind of went numb for a while. Like it was, you know, she felt like she had done a lot to bring Lee to that point. And I think because Amber was so, I'm invincible, nothing will happen to me, she was just like, she probably thought that would have been the same for Leah. And they were, at that point, they were the closest together because they were kind of bonded in what they were doing.
How
so
interesting.
It was devastating. Yeah.
That's interesting.
And I think it was hard. It was hard when she didn't stop.
Yeah.
For us.
Yeah.
I know. I remember after Leah died, reading all the books. I mean, there was other organizations here. I was just trying to find something to prevent it. But it's almost like I felt myself grieving Amber before she even died.
Yeah.
Because you saw these things happening. You saw her spiral. You saw her completely heartbroken. And so it was tough. It's like, you know, that same way I got a phone call when I found out Leah died. It was every time my dad called me, it's going to be Amber. It's going to be Amber. So,
wow.
Yeah, I mean, so that was for a year and a half. I think we're all in that boat. I think even still today, like the same scenario happens. And when people die that close to you, so close together, it's really tough. And so when Amber died, it's almost like we had grieved her death. I'm speaking for myself. It's like you had almost grieved her because she was so numb at that point and so in so much pain.
Yeah, and the reason why we're in so much pain isn't because of the event. It's because we don't have the tools to process the event. And so the thing that we may start the drug because of an idea, but the thing that makes us keep doing the drug is because we don't have a better substitute, you know. And so now you have, you know, Leah is overwhelmed and she goes and she wants more of that to not feel as overwhelmed with what's going on with her son. And then you have Amber, who feels a sense of responsibility, and it's just, and who do you talk to about this, and how do you really grieve that? It's one thing to lose a sister; it's another thing to feel responsible for it, right? And then you don't have the tools. You're using drugs yourself. Like, man, this is the reason why we're so passionate about this, because we want to go to where it starts. We want to really get the education and change the way that we're doing things, because our society, the don't talk, don't trust, don't feel, that's our society. Pretend, and that secrecy is killing us. So thank you so much for sharing all of that. Very powerful and very vulnerable of you guys to be willing to talk about that on the level of the show, because Lord knows who you can help, you know, who maybe is like, wow, you know, I feel like I have a sibling that's spiraling or something's happening, and, you know, what could we do? Yeah. And so at this point, we're going to take a break and do a little commercial for them. So, and when we come back, we'll continue and we'll talk about the 5K race. See you in a bit. Welcome back to the Real Recovery Show. Remember, you can watch us on Facebook, on YouTube, on Amazon Fire TV. You can listen to us on the PHLV radio app, or you can get our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. If you're looking to be on a future episode, just go to themeetingspace.com, click on the Real Recovery Show, and fill out an intake form. If you have any suggestions, you can use the contact form there. And all of our episodes are always posted on the website. And so definitely go and check them out and share them with other people. Help us get the word out. Okay, so now we're back with to the two sisters who started the Second Chance 5K race. And now they're going to share about how it started, why it started, and then we'll take it from there. So you can.
Okay.
So a friend of mine, her name's Holly, she wanted to meet with me for lunch. I actually didn't know why, because we weren't that close, but her sister had just overdosed from heroin.
Okay.
And she didn't know of anyone else that this had happened to, and someone said, well, maybe you should just meet with Jenny and talk to her. So we had a lunch, and all we did was we just kind of talked together and grieved about it, and that was it. We really just kind of connected on really the trauma that we were going through and how we were feeling. And then we kept in touch and kept talking about things. And then she said, you know what, it's going to be the first anniversary of Kristi's death, her sister. And I really just want to do a walk. Would your family want to do a walk with us? I was like, that sounds like a great idea. And her family's from Utah. She's from Utah, but has been in Vegas for 15 or 20 years herself. So we had kind of come up with, we'll do the walk. And she was like, we can just get water bottles and some donuts and just bring the family. But then as she's sitting talking with us, where I was like, well, we should have a name for this this walk. And actually, I think it was my dad that came up with it. He's like, how about Second Chance? And we were like, that's great. And then I said, well, maybe we should have a little more than donuts and water. I mean, we should have a T-shirt. And she was like, okay, T-shirt could be fine. And then we kind of sat around the kitchen table and started brainstorming more ideas. I don't think that's what she was expecting. I was like, I could make a website. And he was like, I could do this kind of a form. I mean, you know what? Actually, we could.
Her eyes are probably like widening.
Just
can we just go for a walk?
That's exactly how it happened. I was like, what about donations? What if people just donated $5 for our little walk?
Yeah.
And then we were like, well, what if we have balloons maybe for the start and finish? And we kind of really kept going. And so then that
you
first
were inspired.
We were. And it just, it really, even that first year was so great. So
How many
incredible.
people did you have the first time?
The first time, well, that's really funny because I think we had maybe a month and a half of planning.
Right.
And I think we had like 300 people.
Wow.
Coming, registering.
That's pretty impressive.
We had like 12 sponsors just in that real quick amount of time.
That's amazing.
Pretty much over text.
So why did your father suggest Second Chance? Like, what was the significance of that?
Yeah, we as we were kind of talking about it, we were just like, what would we call this? Like, why would we be doing it? And he was like, well, are you doing it for, what's our purpose? And we're like, well, really, it's because we're hurting. And he said, so maybe you guys are needing a second chance for yourselves. Oh. And so it kind of turned into, like, we wish we could show other people or people that are struggling with addiction that they need it, that can have a second chance, or as many second chances, but also the families who, can have their own second chances.
Okay.
Because now that if we could have a second chance, we know so much more, but we are hoping we can give that to other families just from making it more available now in the open.
But even also, like, the second chance could be that they have a place to go and people to connect to, that if they should go through the unfortunate thing of losing a family member or somebody else that's close to them, that they can have a second chance at healing for themselves, that they can have a second chance for life because they're holding on to things, the grief, the guilt, all of it, and maybe not having any kind of light at the end of the tunnel, any kind of solutions, any kind of support. Right?
Exactly. Yeah, it covered that. Just that name covered all the bases for us from all sides.
So perfect.
Yeah,
it's very inspired. Okay, so that was your first one, was 300 people, and you had a bunch of sponsors, and it was very. And then what happened?
Well, I would just say, like, with the money we ended up raising, it was like $30,000. I want to say.
Wow, in the first year.
Right, just within that month of planning, and really, as it started with being more about us and our grief, it turned more into providing second chances for people in recovery. And that it just kind of evolved into that. And so with that money, we renovated a wing of West Care, the Women's and Children's Campus.
Nice.
Yeah, because we lost our 3 sisters, we were really passionate about women specifically. And so there was a room or a whole hallway. It had 12 beds, and it needed new carpet, new paint, new tubs, new everything. And so we were able to take that money and renovate the whole hall. And actually just at Black Monday last week, we had 2 girls, and they saw our logo, and they're like, we just finished the program.
Wow,
in the second chance
that's so
wing.
beautiful.
And it was unusable before we went in and did that. And so there's been, like hundreds of girls that have been able to, I guess they say graduate from the second chance wing. Is that what it is? It's your final
that's
program.
so cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's been great.
Yeah.
So you guys you couldn't have been a nonprofit yet. You can't, no.
Yeah, we worked under a nonprofit Lighthouse Charities as we were starting. And so while we applied to become a 501c3, that's kind of how we got things going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I
And then
understand that. It's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
Okay. And so then we want to do this again. Another year. What happened second year?
We did. We kind of were like, do we want to do this again? I think we just did something really good.
Yeah.
And after the first time, we're like, how did we just raise all that money? What do we do with it now? Like, where is this going to go? So it took us a while. We were very careful, and we're still very careful, making sure that we are finding the most, where it can be the most helpful, the most useful, the most people can be helped. We also sponsored, in the beginning, we sponsored a woman named Denise. We were like, maybe we could just sponsor people to go to, and until we realized, that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
How about we so it kind of took us a bit of learning, but the next year was even bigger, and more sponsors, more people had heard about it. We had more ideas, and it was getting more well-known in the community. We still hadn't thought of creating our own nonprofit, because that just seemed like an entirely different beast.
It can be.
Yeah.
It can be. I'm still working through that, learning that beast.
It was a lot.
I wish I knew about nonprofits what I know about addiction.
Right. it's
I
a
have to
lot of
find
work.
somebody.
So we
Okay.
still worked under Lighthouse Charities. It was a nonprofit my dad worked with, and so we were kind of just under theirs. That's where the money kind of went through, and they just kind of held it until we found the best places for it. We also renovated the courtyard. It was actually a Eagle Scout that was his project, and we
Okay.
got donations from the community and Par 3, and we renovated their entire courtyard in that area. So we were, I think it was a couple years. We were probably really, really tight with West Care. We did some drives for them, toys, clothes. We actually had so many trucks of clothes and toys for them that they didn't know what to do with it.
Wow.
So we could spread that out. But then we were able to meet so many others in the community and realize, oh, wow, well, this organization needs help as well, and this organization needs help as well. And we've been able to continue to keep having it grow year after year, and it's been great. COVID took us back a little bit, but after last year, now we're just back on the train again.
Yeah.
And I think over time, since the beginning, it was mostly our friends. It was because it was held in Summerlin. It was mostly Summerlin community. And now we've realized that what we feel best about is bridging all the different communities that are impacted by addiction. And so if you come to our event now, it's everyone, every part of the city, every way that impact, they could be impacted by addiction. It's for everyone, kids to, 80 plus.
There's something very healing about taking something that has such a negative energy to it and doing something positive. There's something transformative inside of us that that just replaces all of that sadness, and it helps to transform the experience into something that is more positive, even though you don't feel like you could transform it. It does, because you're doing something to be helpful and not allowing their deaths to be in vain.
Right.
We've
learned so much more just about recovery and relapse. And I think our first slogan was fighting addiction one step at a time was kind of what we had said. And now it's more like celebrate recovery. Everything's more about celebrate the recovery that you have, even if it's one day, just because we didn't know ourselves. But now that we've been able to really understand more of what's going on in the community, it's helped us so much more. And we're just like, okay, how can we connect? How can you just feel love at this event? And feel hope, even if this is your first day or your first hour. All of these people we're all here for you, and there is no stigma
Well,
here.
if it's their first day,
That's
their
true.
first
Not
hour,
Okay,
I
sorry.
love you, but there's not enough buckets and water and doctors. So
That's true. My naivety show through right there. Okay.
The sun, the walking, which is a good segue because I was thinking about how as we get more and more into our addiction, unless exercise is one of your addictions too, which it happens. But a lot of us, when we get into recovery, if we stop doing the drugs and the alcohol, get into the food and the cigarettes, and that's a thing. And it takes. There's been also based on how long somebody's been in their addiction, and having an attitude of, obviously, we're treating our bodies like garbage cans. We don't really care about our ultimate health. It's all about how we feel and how we look, and what we have and what we don't have. But ultimately, it's just how we feel. When the drug completely takes over, it's only how we feel. We don't care about relationships anymore. We don't care about reputation anymore. We don't care about if we have our money, if we don't have our money, and our health. So when we get into recovery, we start caring about these things again. And sometimes it takes a hot minute for people to start really caring about their health. And so in another way, this event is very health positive, not just don't do the negative, but what can we incrementally do to encourage in a very fun way that this is part of how we need to heal too. It is one of the least pushed aspects in 12-step recovery, but in the big recovery community in this world, which is like so many people, it's becoming a stronger thing where people who are not necessarily bottoming from drugs and alcohol, but wanting to have a healthier life, stop using drugs and alcohol and start exercising, start eating healthier, and start finding out how to not treat their bodies like they don't matter and like they're machines or whatever like that. So here you have this event, and and it could be intimidating to go do a 5K if you are somebody that hasn't been really moving your body and taking care of yourself. It could be intimidating. And so, but it doesn't need to be. That's what's so cool about this particular type of event. A 5K is really just 3 miles, 3.1 miles, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there's no, like, you could do it as slow as you want. You don't even have to do the whole thing. Nope. And around people, and the energy is contagious for these things. But you could just show up, you could just go. And so what has been your experience seeing people of all different health condition levels, fitness levels, coming and doing this, and maybe getting exposed to having a new hit of a new good feeling that maybe they go, I should really do more of this. I'd like to do this every year or something like that. What have you seen in that?
I think that the best way to see that is just if you watch the finish line. Seeing all these people come across the finish line, it's the best part. We've got Palo Verde High School cheerleaders, lining the finish line and seeing these people coming in, shaking their hands, being cheered on for something that, maybe they feel like they have been forgotten, or maybe they haven't been supported in this way. Seeing the smiles, the dances, the jumping in the air, like it's incredible. So yeah. People are coming in rollerblades, on bikes, with their dogs.
Rollerblades?
Kids on scooters,
Strollers.
everything.
We don't have
Yeah,
rules
there's
for
no
that,
timer,
anything.
and everybody gets a medal.
Everybody gets a medal. Oh my
gets a
God.
medal.
Yeah, rollerblades. I would take out 10 people. Yeah. I'd be like, here, you guys want to get there faster?
Right.
Hold me up.
Well, there's groups of 4 that will just kind of walk arm in arm the whole way. And they're just like someone who's, maybe isn't as fit or hasn't done it before. It's still doable. Even if you've never, haven't walked in years, it's still doable because there is no time.
Yeah.
And I think seeing their like excitement of like, I did it, and the arms up of like, oh wait, I just finished.
Yeah.
And it's actually so beautiful to see. And especially there's also so much support. the whole line of the race, the signs. We have all kinds of high school kids holding the signs, and everyone's cheering everyone on the whole way. Hopefully as just some sort of metaphor that, this community is really going to try to cheer you on all the time. Yeah.
There's something also about the camaraderie and everybody together, because in recovery, one of the most powerful tools is the actual meeting itself or the gathering itself, because people don't feel so terminally unique anymore. They don't feel alone. They feel heard. They feel seen. They feel a part of. They get in the middle of the herd, and they feel like something is happening rather than feeling like they're just passing through life, And it's a great positive message to people who can imagine recovery as being this glum experience devoid of any joy and any happiness. All you'd have to do is go and or watch this and watch a video of it and see people happy. And so, and I will also say this, anybody who's had any addiction to anything that's going to make them feel good, there is a natural high that you get when you exercise. It is you don't have to pay for it. You won't go to jail for it, and it's not likely to kill you. And it's amazing. It's amazing what the body could do little by little to repair itself as well. And so it's very powerful. There's so many parts to it, right? Yeah. You just show up, you do it, you make the cute T-shirts.
We usually have a speaker at the beginning that just kind of gets everyone, just gives like a little bit of inspiration. And then we usually have a really great warm-up person that gets everyone dancing. We've got a DJ.
Oh, that's cute.
Lots of music. Who's the people that hosted it? Coyote 102.7, yeah.
Oh, that's cute.
So it's actually lots of fun. I mean, kids have their little heart tattoos. They've got balloons on the strollers. It's very happy. It feels, and I think it's nice that it's combining with all of the kids. You're feeling like, oh, wait a second, we're teaching them, because they're like, why are we doing this again, Mom? What is this? Yeah. And it just makes that open up. We also have all the resource tables if someone were to need it, and those line the streets. There's, it's just such a good feeling when you're there, and that's usually the response.
We're going to be there too during that. We'll have the meeting schedules and all that stuff out there and talk to people.
Perfect.
Yeah, because we have the meeting space. We have every kind of meeting, so
that's great.
We can answer any questions. Yeah. But I love that. I love just the bigger you get, the more of an impact of getting the message out this will be, and you, in and of itself, and it is to raise awareness, but it's also to raise money so that you can actually do things. So like all parts of this are very pretty. But yeah, so doing this for yourself and being involved in this is now your 7th year. And you have felt that this experience has helped you guys heal. How has it helped you guys heal?
I think, we're not experts on addiction. We don't know it from personal experience. We're not scholars by any means, but we benefit from the connection as well. Meeting people we never would have met before, hearing stories that maybe we wouldn't have heard before. And so that same thing that you talked about, the camaraderie, that's helping us, and that's what's helping us heal. And I think that that's one of the most beautiful parts about it.
And I think like the some of the connections we've made. I know when we went with Shine a Light to go to the tunnels, and we went through, and that first time was, one of the top impactful moments of my life.
Yeah.
Mostly, I think, too, because these were just beautiful humans. That's it. And I was like, oh, goodness, how can I help you? And I don't know if I would have had that view before.
Yeah.
And we talked to someone whose name was Amber in one of the tunnels.
I just got the chills. Yeah. Wow.
And she had talked about her son, and she went to the same high school as my younger sister.
Oh, my God.
They knew the same teachers.
We were chatting about teachers, and it was just like, you're just a beautiful human who just got stuck here, And I think what was so wonderful about that is we genuinely had no judgment, and no one with us did. So it was more like, if you'd like help, great. If this is what you want to keep doing, okay. We're just here to tell you we love you,
right,
and want to make sure that you have what you need. Okay,
yeah.
We'll be back in case you need it. And it just, we were saying, if me and Holly were walking, we were like, you want to know what Jesus would have done? If we're talking about Jesus, this is what Jesus does. This is what Jesus does. He goes and finds the one, and I think that's what we've been able to see. We're meeting one by one people. We're making individual connections with people that will say, you know what, I keep checking in at your race each year, and now I'm 7 years sober. And, just that feeling from one person, if that's what we've helped, it feels incredible. It's
I
each
never
year I'll
thought
come
of
back.
that. Like, acting like it's a yearly milestone. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I must confess, I've had a big story about not doing races. And partly because from addiction, and also I have a spine injury. I ended up with epilepsy. And so I had, and I think it was like nine and a half years ago, I nearly died. So like I had I was going to have organ failure and breathing issues and asthma and all that fun stuff. And so I'm getting to a point. So I had to do a lot to be able to just kind of not push too hard and move. And I got into that kind of mindset where I was like, I don't really know what I'm capable of doing, etc. And then I went plant-based. I got into a sauna. I sweat a lot. I drink water. I learned how to breathe differently. And so little by little, just like an addict gets more addicted, sicker, little by little, I'm getting healthier. And then in December, somebody extremely close to me, because only somebody extremely close to me can get me to do this, said that she was going to do this challenge, 2023 miles in 2023, which if you do the math is a little bit more than 5.5 miles a day. And
That's a lot.
Yeah. So my first reaction was, hell no, hell to the no, not happening, not me. And then I had another experience where I was like, so you want this to be your narrative, that you can't do this, and you're 51 years old, and when would you do it then? When would you do it? And I was like, all of a sudden, I was like, I'm turned off that I have the narrative that I can't do this thing, right? And all it was, again, this ignorance about addiction, this ignorance about exercise, I promise you. Because now I'm a geek, right? So now in order to get through my skull, I have to do the math. And so there's this walk around. I live in Rhodes Ranch, and there's this walk around that is 2.5 miles. I didn't think it was 2.5 miles to walk my dog. And I was just like, I do 2.5 miles already? Are you kidding? And I'm like, and I don't do it every day. I'm like, okay, that's a little intimidating. And then I was just like, but something in me, right, said, do this. So out of my mouth said, I'll do this. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, but don't tell anybody. She's broadcasting it on Facebook. And I'm like, don't tell anybody. I don't need anybody watching this. Now I'm telling you, this is great. I'm only in February, but whatever. And then I started to do it. And I started to do it at 5.5 miles a day. And I got up to now 300 miles. I just hit a 300-mile mark. Wow. And yeah, like what?
It's
like
amazing.
But the biggest, and we talk about this all the time on these shows, the biggest block wasn't my physical health. It was my mental outlook, my whole thought system, my narrative, my programming, and so that's why I'm saying, because former me would not have said, let's do this episode. I'll wear a shirt. I'm going to come and I'm going to walk on in your 5K. I promise you, there's a reason why we scheduled this episode now. I wouldn't have done that then. And now I'm all like, I would have wanted to interview you, but I wouldn't have included myself in it. It wouldn't have happened. And so it's just amazing how, as a community of recovery, how coming together as a society of being positive and solution-oriented and joining and healing and forgiving, that we can together do what was so difficult to do alone. We could do these things and make a 5K not a big deal.
Right.
And talking about addiction, not a big deal. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And isn't that the point?
It's totally
Because
the
we're
point.
as sick as our secrets. And people are dying. And so, yeah. So any favorite kind of experiences in this that maybe, you've talked about so many really good things already, but people, things that were said to you, things you got to see, or anything that really stand out for you in this experience with it?
I mentioned at the beginning that I used to be a high school teacher. We went to see Mission High School a couple weeks ago. That was just incredible. Seeing these adults, seeing these kids. I just can't... I don't know what would happen if that opportunity was available, when our sisters were younger, or there's so much good going on, and we are meeting so many incredible people that we're so inspired by. And I mean, I know we talked about Las Vegas just being kind of rock star community, and we just feel really lucky to be a part of it. But I would say I was so touched when we went to Mission. Just what they're doing, the passion behind it, the heart behind it. I just was like, I felt so proud that it was in our city, and we're we're hoping to spend a lot of the proceeds
There's
this year.
There's a lot of changes happening. There's Narcan in schools. There's education. Like, we didn't even have anti-bully campaigns when I was a kid.
Just so different.
And now there's like all that. There's, I mean, there's so much more. Like, even if a child is not getting some of these tools in their house, this next generation is exposed to a lot more than any of us had. I don't know about your ages, but like any of us had. You know?
Right.
Like, it's,
and like we think about a lot of times social media as being negative, but all these things kids can access, which is great. This information, and seeing that these aren't people who are bad and need to get good, that they're people who are sick and need to get well. Like, it's just a different mentality, you know? But that information is there, and these kids, and different, doesn't matter where you come from, you can still have access to that information online, which I think is a really wonderful thing.
One of the things I love about you guys too is that even with a family member having an active addiction, even if somebody doesn't necessarily end up in a hospital or has passed away, there's so much judgment. There's so much judgment in families riddled with addiction, pointing to the addict, the alcoholic. There's so much, and there's so little understanding. And so if there's somebody who's listening or seeing anything that you're doing, and they see how tolerant and loving and understanding and seeking to understand addiction, it does invite people to look at themselves and say, well, I have a family member who's suffering. Why am I telling them, you know, if you're strong enough or if you loved me more, like, you would stop? If you knew addiction, you would understand it has nothing to do with how smart they are. It has nothing, in fact, usually they're the smarter people anyway. And it has nothing to do with whether they're a good person. It has nothing to do with whether or not they have skills. It has nothing to do with whether or not they have morals. It has nothing to do with what kind of opportunities they've been given. It doesn't. It has to do with what they feel on now a neurological level as well as psychological level. They do need to be okay. And if you've ever seen Maslow's hierarchy of human needs, you go from a basic core need of survival. And if if you can do the survival, and you can get the money, and you can have the friends, and you can take care of your health, you get to a place where you're able to like really self-actualize and like feel purposeful and good in your life. But if you're driven down to the level of survival, it's not personal. It's not personal at all. And as Brandon Novak said, it's business, you know, and the drug or the alcohol comes first. And so the person in the family will look at it and look at the person who's using, and they won't understand it, and they will judge them, and they will take it quite personally. And they will say, man, you know, if you were this, you should be able to stop. Why can't you just stop? You know, and they will take it quite personally, like I said. And so they're in their own way, or, you know, they just need this, you know, I feel really bad. They went through this thing, and they will walk around with a pillow under their butt and enable them, bail them out of jail, etc. But the judgment, seeing them without being able to see them as, like you said so beautifully, another soul having this human experience, another beautiful soul having this human experience, and not any, we're not better than anybody,
right?
You know, and so how beautiful your spiritual journeys of following your heart, following your intuition, and starting this movement, and awakening more and healing each other and talking about this in the process of this. It's quite profound. It's our stories about other people and seeing the differences. It's not seeing the similarities. It's seeing everybody is different. That keeps us separate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautifully said.
I love this. Okay, so this next one that's coming up, where is it?
Yeah.
What do people do to sign up for it? Tell us all the deets.
So it's at Givens Elementary again. This is where we've had it. We'll see. We may be outgrowing that because we keep getting more and more, but I think we love how compact it gets. So we love everyone being so close together. It's held in Summerlin. It is March 25th at 8 a.m. is when you get there. We don't really like to call it a race because it's, the walk. The walk is
Right.
at 9 o'clock.
Right.
And you can register on our website. It's ready to go. Also, if someone is in recovery, we don't want them to have to pay.
Okay.
So there's a way you can just contact us on there, and we'll make sure that we give you a code.
Okay.
So
So
they
just
don't need
hit
to
the
pay. We just want them
contact
to
button
come.
and just write to you? Okay.
Yep, and we can give that to you as well.
Okay.
So the most important thing for us is that anyone who feels like they need to be cheered on is there, so that cost is not a factor. We'll take the money from the people who haven't, so that's fine. Let's see, what else? We're still looking for sponsors.
Okay.
We've had a good amount so far, but any other businesses that resonate with this cause, we'd love to have them.
And the deadline for that
March 1st.
is March 1st?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
To get
And
your
then-
name on the back of the shirt,
Right.
you gotta do this by March 1st.
Yes.
Okay.
And
See, this is really cool too. Like if you see all the
look at all those.
Look at all those names.
We've got some great sponsors.
Jenny designs it. And we do say to register by March 5th to guarantee your size. So we'll try to have a T-shirt for everyone, but we never know how many people come right at the end. But you can register all the way up.
And do you
until
have
the
like
day
tons
the
of
event.
waters for people and people standing and giving waters?
We have
We
water
do.
stations.
Water
yeah.
stations.
You could
food
tell I know
trucks.
very little of these kinds of races.
Oh, no. Yeah.
This one's different because we do have food trucks at the end, DJ, dancing. I mean, it's a really lively, fun event. And if you feel like, man, I cannot walk that far, then don't. Walk what you can. Listen to your body. This isn't anywhere to feel judgment. It's just
Right.
to walk together. As
Yeah.
slow or as fast or honestly as much as you want is fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
And because you'll see guys on probably electric bikes, so that's fine too. We don't have
Yeah.
rules.
It's like a
Anything.
carnival.
It is. It's just walking along, feeling good together.
The recovery circus. Come join the recovery
I
circus.
like that. Cartwheel, whatever you want to do is fine.
That's amazing. Okay, very cool. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really, like my heart, I feel like so close to you guys now because we had this really super intimate conversation. And man, I just love people who are, you could tell when the light of God is like coming out of their eyes and they're passionate. I love that. So thank you so much for
We
joining us.
appreciate you.
Thank you.
And please remember that the opinions expressed here are strictly those of the people who gave them and do not represent any 12-step program or should replace your own intuition or professional medical advice. Thank you again for joining us on The Real Recovery Show. We'd like to give a special thanks to our sponsor and gracious host, PHLV Radio here in Las Vegas, and a special shout out to one person who's been making this all possible, Johan, who, if I didn't have him ask me to do this and be the wind beneath my wings, this would not be taking place. So thank you, Johan. Okay, see you guys all next week.